When the bank called that morning, I thought it was a mistake. The woman on the phone said our joint account had been emptied overnight. Every dollar gone. I froze, my hand shaking as I asked her to repeat it. She did, gently, as if she already knew what it meant. My husband, Lucas, handled most of our finances. I trusted him. After 12 years of marriage, why wouldn't I? I hung up and called his phone. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. The house was too quiet. His closet door was open. The drawers half empty. That's when I saw it, his wedding ring sitting on the dresser beside a folded note. I'm sorry, but I need to start over. Don't try to find me. That's all it said. The shock hit like ice water. Not only had he left me, he'd taken everything we'd built. My savings. My security. My trust. My heart raced as I stared at the empty spaces he'd left behind. Lucas hadn't just walked out, he had erased me from our life. I whispered to the empty room, "Dear worst Lucas, you'll regret this." By noon, everyone in our small town seemed to know. My neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, brought over tea and pity. "Men do foolish things," she said, patting my hand. I smiled weakly, pretending not to care, but inside I was boiling. Lucas hadn't just abandoned me, he'd humiliated me. He drained our savings account, maxed out our credit cards, and left a message with my boss saying I'd resigned. It was as if he wanted to erase my entire existence. I spent that night on the living room couch, surrounded by old photos of us smiling at the beach, laughing at family dinners. Lies, every one of them. The next day, I went to the police, but the officer said it was a civil matter. I could file for divorce and sue him, but there wasn't much they could do about the money. He'd transferred it all legally. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart burned with anger, but beneath it, something colder began to form, resolve. He thought he'd taken everything from me. He was wrong. I had something he didn't know about. Something I had hidden for years. And I was going to use it. The first step was finding him. I hired a private investigator, a quiet woman named Nora, who didn't waste words. I showed her the note, the bank records, and a picture of Lucas. "He won't stay gone long," she said. "Men like him never do." She was right. 3 weeks later, she called. Found him. Aspen Valley. With someone named Claire. Claire. The name twisted my stomach. I remembered her from Lucas's office parties, his new assistant, young and polished, always laughing a little too hard at his jokes. Nora sent photos. Lucas and Claire leaving a hotel hand in hand. Lucas smiling like the world hadn't just been shattered behind him. I printed the photos and pinned them inside a folder marked Evidence. Then I called a lawyer. If Lucas wanted war, he'd get it. The day of the first court hearing, I walked in wearing the same gray suit I wore to his company dinners. My hands were steady. He looked shocked to see me calm. Maybe he expected tears. Instead, I gave him a smile sharp enough to cut. He leaned toward his lawyer and whispered. I just sat back, ready. He thought I had nothing left. He was about to learn otherwise. Lucas's lawyer was confident, arrogant even. He told the judge that Lucas had supported me for years, that I had no income, no assets, and no claim to the money he'd earned. Lucas sat beside him, nodding like a man who believed he'd already won. When it was my turn, I stood. My voice didn't shake. Your Honor, my husband took not just our savings but funds from my personal inheritance account. Lucas's face changed color. The judge raised an eyebrow. You have proof? Not yet, I said, but I will. The truth was I already had it. Hidden in a secure folder Nora helped me build, a collection of documents, bank transfers, and emails showing how Lucas had forged my signature and funneled my late father's estate money into his business. I wasn't ready to show it yet. Not until the right moment. As we left the courtroom, Lucas stopped me. You should quit while you can, he said coldly. You'll walk out of this with nothing. I smiled. We'll see. He laughed, smug and careless. That laugh stayed in my mind the rest of the night. It was the sound of a man who thought the game was over. But I had only just begun. Nora helped me trace the missing money. It wasn't hard. Lucas was careless when he was confident. Half the funds went into a new business account under his name, the rest into an offshore account linked to Claire. They thought they were clever, but every digital trail leaves footprints. Meanwhile, Lucas kept flaunting his new life online. Photos of fancy dinners, luxury cars, a new house. I saved every single one. Each post was another nail in his coffin. My lawyer, Mr. Benson, said we needed one more solid piece of evidence before we could move forward. I had it, but timing mattered. That weekend, I drove to Aspen Valley. I sat in my car outside their new house, hidden behind tinted glass, and watched them unload groceries. They looked happy, almost perfect. But I noticed something Lucas didn't. Claire was pregnant. I recorded a short video, the camera zooming in on the ultrasound photo she proudly showed to a friend on the driveway. By the time I drove home, my plan was clear. Lucas had built his future on my money. Now I'd use that same money to destroy his. He wanted to play dirty. So would I. The next morning, I called Nora. Keep watching him, I said. I need everything, where he works, what he spends, who he talks to. She delivered. Within a week, I had pages of reports. Lucas was trying to start a new company with Claire, using money he stole from me. They called it Silver Ridge Homes, a real estate venture. I nearly laughed when I read that. He had no idea how transparent he was. Mr. Benson said it was enough to press charges for fraud and marital theft. But let's wait, he advised. If we reveal this now, he'll hide the rest. We want him to think he's safe. So I waited. I went back to work at the library, kept my head down, and acted like I was broken. Lucas sent a few smug texts, "Hope you're surviving." I didn't reply. Every time I felt the sting of betrayal, I looked at the folder on my desk. Inside it was my power, my proof, my revenge. And soon the world would see it. Lucas filed for divorce 2 months later. His lawyer sent a thick envelope to my door. I read every word. He wanted full control of the house, the remaining assets, and even spousal support. He thought I'd panic. Instead, I laughed. Mr. Benson and I met that evening to plan. Let him believe he's won, he said. We'll wait until the financial hearing to drop the evidence. That night, I went through old emails, piecing together Lucas's trail of lies. There were messages to Claire talking about our future with her money. My money. Each line burned, but I saved every one. I spent hours practicing what I'd say when I finally faced him in court. No tears, no begging. Just truth. Still, sometimes the nights got heavy. The house felt too big and too quiet. But I held on to something my mother used to say. The calm before the storm isn't weakness. It's preparation. And I was almost ready for the storm. When the second court date came, Lucas arrived wearing a designer suit. Claire sat in the back row, pretending not to meet my eyes. Her stomach was rounder now. The judge asked about the missing funds. Lucas's lawyer stood. My client denies any wrongdoing. The accounts in question belong solely to him. I waited until he finished. Then I opened my folder and handed copies to the judge and opposing counsel. Inside were screenshots of wire transfers, signatures he had forged, and business registrations using my inheritance. Lucas's face turned pale. The judge looked up. Mr. Collins, these are serious allegations. Lucas tried to speak, but his lawyer whispered something, and they both sat down quickly. Mr. Benson leaned forward, calm and steady. Your Honor, we request a forensic accountant to review these records. We believe my client's husband has committed financial fraud. The judge nodded. Request granted. As we left, Lucas caught my arm. How long have you had that? Long enough, I said quietly. Enjoy your new life while it lasts. For the first time, he looked scared. The investigation took weeks. During that time, Lucas and Claire started avoiding public places. Nora kept tabs, sending me updates that read like scenes from a movie, arguments in parking lots, closed blinds, nervous whispers. Then one evening she called. He's moving money again. Offshore. We traced it to a hidden account in Claire's name, set up days before the hearing. That was the last piece we needed. Mr. Benson prepared a full report and filed for an emergency injunction to freeze the accounts. Lucas tried to contact me after that. Calls, messages, even flowers at my doorstep. I didn't answer. The man who left me with nothing was now desperate to talk. At night, I sat in my living room with a quiet satisfaction. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. For months, he'd thought I was powerless. Now I held every card. The next hearing would decide everything. And I was ready to watch his empire crumble. The courtroom was packed for the final hearing. Word had spread, small towns always talk. I walked in with my head high, folder in hand. Lucas sat at the defense table, his lawyer whispering frantically. The judge called the session to order. Mr. Benson stood. Your Honor, we submit new evidence proving that Mr. Collins transferred over $200,000 from his wife's inheritance into personal accounts, including one overseas. He handed the files to the clerk. The room fell silent as the judge reviewed the documents. Lucas's lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. Mr. Collins, the judge said finally, can you explain these transfers? Lucas stammered. It was a misunderstanding. My wife agreed. I did not, I said firmly. My voice echoed in the room. He forged my name. The judge sighed, setting down the papers. This court finds significant evidence of financial misconduct. Temporary control of all accounts will be granted to Mrs. Collins until further notice. Lucas's jaw tightened. I looked at him calmly. The man who once promised me forever was now just a stranger drowning in his own lies. And I wasn't done yet. When I stepped out of the courthouse that day, the air felt lighter. Nora was waiting by her car, smiling. That went well, she said. It's only the start, I told her. He's still hiding something. She nodded. Then we keep digging. Over the next week, Nora traced more records. Lucas had borrowed money against our old house before he left, secretly. He'd used it to buy the new property in Aspen Valley. That meant part of it was mine. When Mr. Benson told me, I almost couldn't believe it. He used our house as collateral? Yes, he said. And that makes the new one a marital asset. The next hearing would address property division. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Lucas thought he'd built a new life far from me. He didn't realize it was standing on my foundation. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, looking at the papers spread before me. My anger had cooled into something sharper, a quiet determination. Lucas had taken everything once. Now, piece by piece, I was taking it back. The following Friday, Nora sent a message that made my heart stop. You should see this, she wrote. Attached was a photo of Claire in the hospital, holding a newborn baby. Lucas stood beside her, looking exhausted but proud. He'd moved on completely, new life, new family. I stared at the picture for a long time, unsure what I felt. Sadness? Maybe once. But now, only clarity. That night, I pulled out the last piece of evidence I'd been saving, a recording from a call I'd secretly made before he left. Lucas had bragged about using my wife's inheritance to make real money. He laughed about how I'd never see it coming. Mr. Benson said the recording was admissible. If the judge hears this, it's over, he told me. Good, I said. It's time he learns actions have consequences. The next court date was set for 2 weeks later. I marked it on my calendar and read. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about truth. The days leading up to the hearing felt endless. I went back to work, tried to live normally, but everyone whispered. Small-town gossip spreads faster than fire. At the grocery store, people looked at me with sympathy. At the library, some smiled like they already knew I'd win. It was strange being both pitied and admired. Meanwhile, Lucas's lawyer kept sending offers, half the assets if I withdrew the fraud charges. Each one sweeter than the last. I refused them all. Nora found another gem just in time. Emails between Lucas and his accountant discussing how to bury the transfers before she notices. That sealed it. The night before court, I sat alone in my kitchen again. I looked at my reflection in the window, stronger now, steadier. The woman who cried on the couch months ago was gone. Tomorrow, Lucas would finally face everything he'd done. And I would not flinch. Court was colder this time, quiet and serious. The judge looked tired, flipping through pages of evidence. Lucas avoided my eyes. Claire sat in the back with their baby, pretending not to hear. Mr. Benson played the audio recording. Lucas's voice filled the courtroom, smug and unmistakable. Her inheritance is wasted sitting in savings. I'll turn it into something real before she even knows it's gone. The sound of his laughter made the room freeze. The judge leaned back slowly. That will do, she said. Mr. Collins, this is clear proof of intentional fraud. Lucas's lawyer tried to object, but it was useless. The evidence was solid. When the session ended, Lucas stood still, pale and shaking. You planned this, he muttered as I walked past. The final ruling came a month later. Lucas was ordered to return every dollar he stole, surrender half his new property, and pay legal fees. His business license was suspended pending investigation. I sat quietly as the judge read the verdict. Lucas didn't look at me once. When it was over, I walked out of the courtroom, not triumphant, but free. Outside, reporters had gathered. Someone shouted, How does it feel to win? I just smiled. It's not about winning, I said. It's about being heard. Later that night, I received a message from an unknown number. You ruined me, it said. No name, but I knew who it was. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the windows, letting in the cold night air. My house, once filled with silence and sadness, felt new again. Lucas had tried to erase me. But in the end, I had written the final chapter myself. And it was only the beginning of my peace. No, I said. You did. Outside the courthouse, the air was crisp and bright. Nora called it poetic justice. I called it closure almost. After the verdict, my life became strangely quiet. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up thinking about court dates or evidence. The noise in my head had finally faded. I went back to the library full-time. People still whispered, but the tone had changed. Instead of pity, it was respect. Nora stopped by one afternoon with coffee. You know, she said, not many people could have done what you did. I didn't think I could either, I admitted. But he underestimated me. She smiled. They always do. Later that night, I looked through my old wedding photos one last time. I didn't feel pain anymore, just distance. Those moments were gone, and I was okay with that. I boxed up everything that reminded me of him, letters, gifts, even the ring, and took it to a donation center the next morning. As I drove away, the sun broke through the clouds. It felt like a sign, a small one but enough. Lucas tried to appeal, of course. He claimed the evidence was tampered and that I'd set him up. The court dismissed it within a week. Mr. Benson called to tell me. It's officially over, he said. He can't touch you or your assets again. Hearing those words felt unreal. After everything, I was finally safe. Still, there were moments when I wondered how it had come to this. We used to plan our future together, travel, kids, everything. But greed had eaten through him like rust. One evening, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a single photo. Lucas, looking older, standing outside a small rental house. No note, no message. Just silence. I stared at it for a moment, then tossed it into the fireplace. The flames took it quickly. He had made his choices. And I had made mine. Months passed. The seasons changed. Life began to feel normal again, even beautiful in small ways. I started taking painting classes, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for. Each brushstroke felt like breathing again. One afternoon, Mrs. Ellis came over with a pie. You look lighter, she said with a smile. I am, I told her, for the first time in years. She nodded. Sometimes we have to lose everything to find ourselves again. Her words stayed with me. I began volunteering at the community center, helping others going through financial abuse. My story gave people hope. It reminded them that silence was never the answer. And when I stood in front of that small group, sharing what I'd survived, I realized something. Lucas hadn't broken me. He'd forged me. One evening, I got a message from Nora. "You'll want to see this." She sent a link to a local news story. Lucas's business had officially collapsed. His investors pulled out, and the fraud investigation had turned criminal. He faced charges for forgery and embezzlement. I stared at the article, feeling a mix of emotions, pity, relief, and something close to forgiveness. I didn't wish him pain anymore. He had built his own downfall, brick by brick. I closed my laptop and stepped outside. The night sky was clear, full of stars. I thought of my father, of the inheritance he'd left me. Not just money, but a legacy of honesty. Lucas had tried to use it to destroy me. Instead, it became the tool that saved me. Justice was allowed that night. It was quiet, steady, and complete. The next morning, I drove to the lake where Lucas and I had once spent our anniversaries. The water was calm, mirroring the sky. I sat on the dock, the breeze cool against my face. I took out a small envelope. Inside was the last trace of him, the folded note he'd left the day he ran. "I'm sorry, but I need to start over." I read it one final time, then tore it in half and let the pieces drift into the lake. Starting over wasn't his privilege anymore. It was mine. As the paper sank beneath the water, I felt something inside me lift. The anger, the hurt, the fear, it all loosened its hold. When I stood up to leave, I whispered to the wind, "Dear worst life, I've already survived it." And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. Weeks later, I received a letter from the court clerk. It confirmed the transfer of all recovered funds into my account. When I saw the numbers, I didn't feel greed or triumph, just quiet relief. That money wasn't about wealth. It was about closure. I used part of it to repair the old library roof and set up a scholarship in my father's name for local students. Giving back felt right. It felt like turning pain into purpose. Mr. Benson called to congratulate me. "You handled this with more grace than most," he said. Grace took practice, I told him with a laugh. And a little anger. When we hung up, I realized I no longer checked over my shoulder. The fear that had lived in me for months was gone. Lucas was a closed chapter now, and I was writing a new book, my own. Spring came early that year. Flowers bloomed outside my window, and the air smelled of rain and possibility. At the library, a new volunteer joined us, a quiet man named Adrian who loved old novels and made everyone laugh. I noticed his kindness before anything else. He never asked about my past. He just treated me like someone starting fresh. For a while, I resisted talking much, still guarding the pieces of myself. But he never pushed. Slowly, I began to trust again. One afternoon, he found me shelving books and said, "You seem lighter lately." "I am," I said. "It's nice to finally breathe." He smiled. "Then keep breathing." I walked home that day feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. Not for someone else to save me, but for the life I was finally choosing. Sometimes, late at night, memories still flickered. The bank call, the empty drawers, the betrayal. But they no longer hurt. They were just echoes, reminders of how far I'd come. I started journaling again. Page after page, I wrote down everything I'd learned, how trust could be rebuilt, how silence was dangerous, and how strength often looked like quiet persistence. I decided to turn my experience into a talk for the community center, reclaiming yourself after betrayal. When I spoke, people listened. Some cried. Some smiled. All understood. Afterward, a young woman approached me and whispered, "Your story saved me." That was when I realized my pain had a purpose. Lucas had taken my money, my peace, even my name for a while, but he couldn't take my voice. That was mine again. One day, I visited the courthouse for the last time, just to thank the clerk who'd helped me through it all. As I was leaving, I saw Lucas in the hallway. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, tired, worn down. He froze when he saw me. For a long second, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "You got everything you wanted." I shook my head. "No." "I got what I deserved." He nodded once, eyes down, then walked away. No anger. No words left to hurt. As I stepped outside, sunlight spilled across the steps. It felt symbolic, like the universe was closing a door for good. And I didn't look back. A year later, I stood at the same lake where I'd thrown away that letter. The water shimmered beneath a golden sunset. My life was calm now: work, friends, peace. I thought of everything that had happened, every tear, and every victory. I wasn't the same woman who once cried over a drained bank account. I was stronger, wiser, free. I whispered to the wind, not to Lucas this time, but to myself. You did your worst. And I survived it. Then I smiled, turned away from the past, and walked toward the car waiting by the trees. Behind me, the water rippled softly, carrying away the last of the memories. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had something far better. A new beginning.